Ladies and gentlemen, grief has a way of shaking us to our very core. It doesn't arrive gently. It crashes in like a storm, tearing through everything familiar, leaving silence in places where laughter once lived. And for many, when grief hits the hardest, faith can feel like it disappears altogether. You may find yourself asking questions you never dared to ask before. You may feel abandoned, disconnected, or empty. But I want to tell you today, you are not alone, and this season, no matter how painful, is not where your story ends. Let's talk about how to navigate grief when faith feels lost. Not with shallow answers, but with honesty, compassion, and courage. Because even in the darkness, there is a way forward. Number 1, it's okay to question and feel broken. In moments of profound grief, the world seems to fall apart. What once felt solid, your beliefs, your routines, your understanding of life, can suddenly feel foreign or even false. The pain you carry doesn't just come from the loss of a loved one or a dream. It also comes from the internal unraveling that loss brings. You might feel like everything you trusted has betrayed you, that the foundation of your faith has cracked under the pressure of your sorrow, that you're no longer sure where to turn or even who you are. And that's okay. Questioning in the midst of pain is not a sign of failure. It's a sign of being real. It means you're engaging with your grief honestly instead of hiding behind cliches or pretending everything is okay. When life hits you in a way that steals your breath and leaves you on your knees, questions come uninvited and relentless. Why did this happen? Where was God? Was I being punished? Did I do something wrong? Does any of this even make sense anymore? These questions, as painful and disorienting as they are, aren't things to be ashamed of. They're a natural response to trauma and heartache. When something sacred is torn from your life, you begin to examine everything else that was connected to it. And sometimes that means looking hard at your faith, at the beliefs you once held with conviction, and realizing they no longer feel the same. That's not weakness. That's awakening. The truth is, grief changes us. It pulls back the curtain and shows us things we never saw before. Things we maybe couldn't see until everything fell apart. In these moments, you may feel broken, shattered, like a version of yourself has died alongside the person or dream you lost. You might not even recognize your own reflection in the mirror. You might feel numb one moment and consumed by emotion the next. This chaos within you, it's part of grief. It's not something to fix or rush through. It's something to honor, because to feel broken is not to be beyond repair. It's a place of vulnerability, a place where your soul is raw and exposed. But even in that space, there is something deeply sacred. When all the facades fall away, when your strength gives out, and you can no longer pretend, what's left is the truest part of you, the part that feels deeply, that loves deeply, and that is desperately trying to hold on in the middle of the storm. You don't need to have all the answers right now. You don't need to put the pieces back together in a hurry. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply sit with your questions. Let them be what they are. Let them breathe. You may not find the answers today, or even tomorrow, but that doesn't mean they won't come. And more importantly, it doesn't mean you're lost or failing because you're struggling to believe. In fact, real faith is often born in the questioning. Not the kind of faith that demands blind certainty, but the kind that is forged in the fire of loss. The kind that wrestles with doubt and still dares to hope. The kind that says, I don't understand and I might never understand, but I won't stop seeking. That kind of faith is deeper, it's more resilient, and it's built on something more honest than simple answers. It's built on trust, even when that trust feels fragile. You are allowed to mourn not just what you lost, but the version of yourself and your life that existed before the loss. You are allowed to feel confused, betrayed, angry, or numb. You are allowed to scream into the silence and sit in the darkness without trying to make sense of it all. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave, because showing up to your grief, allowing yourself to feel the weight of it, to be broken open by it, that takes incredible courage. It's easy to shut down. It's easy to pretend, but you, in your brokenness, are choosing to face what hurts. And that is not small. That is not something to hide. That is something to honor. Sometimes when people tell us to stay strong, what they really mean is don't cry, don't show pain, don't fall apart. But strength doesn't always look like holding it together. Sometimes strength is letting yourself cry in the middle of the night. Sometimes it's sitting with your doubts instead of running from them. Sometimes it's allowing yourself to not know the way forward and still taking one small step anyway. And here's the truth. Even if your faith feels shattered right now, that doesn't mean it's gone forever. It might be evolving. It might be waiting to be rebuilt. Slowly, gently, piece by piece, in a new and more honest form. The questions you're asking today could be the foundation of a deeper wisdom you'll carry tomorrow. But none of that can happen if you skip the part where you allow yourself to feel. So feel. Feel your heartbreak, your confusion, your emptiness. Let it rise and let it move through you. Trust that your emotions are not dangerous. They are signals. They are expressions of love and longing and loss. And in expressing them, you are honoring the depth of your connection to what was taken from you. That's not weakness, that's love. And it's evidence that you still have something beautiful within you, even if you can't see it right now. Healing doesn't come from pretending to be okay. It comes from allowing yourself to not be okay. From admitting you're broken and giving yourself the space to feel, question, grieve, and slowly rebuild. And as impossible as it might seem right now, there will come a day when the heaviness begins to lift, even if only slightly. There will come a time when your questions lead you to new understandings. When your brokenness makes room for unexpected beauty. When your pain becomes part of your strength. So if you're feeling lost, if your faith feels like it's slipping through your fingers, know this: you are not alone. You are not wrong for questioning, and you are not broken beyond repair. You are simply in the middle of a process that will, in time, transform you. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to force your way back to belief. You just need to take the next breath. Feel what you feel and trust even just a little that this pain has something to teach you, that you are being shaped, not shattered. And that even now, in your questioning and brokenness, you are still worthy. You are still whole. You are still becoming. Number 2. Find safe spaces to be heard and seen. When grief overwhelms the heart and faith feels distant or even lost, one of the most vital things we can do is find safe spaces to be heard and seen. In the midst of pain, it's easy to believe that no one can truly understand what we're going through, and that belief can push us deeper into isolation. The silence around grief is deafening. The world keeps moving, people keep talking, but inside you, everything has changed. And in that gap between your inner world and the outside noise, loneliness can settle in like a heavy fog. Grief is not just sadness. It's confusion, anger, numbness, disbelief. It's waking up and remembering all over again what you've lost. It's trying to smile when your soul feels hollow, and when faith used to be your comfort, but now feels like an echo, the ache becomes even more complex. In those moments, the human spirit longs not for solutions, but for connection. For someone to look at us not with pity or judgment, but with presence. For someone to say, I see you, I hear you, and I'm not going anywhere. Safe spaces aren't always easy to find, but they are essential. They don't require grand gestures or perfect words. Sometimes they're found in the quiet presence of a friend who simply listens. Sometimes they're in support groups where people carry similar scars and don't expect you to explain why you're crying again today. Sometimes they're in the arms of someone who doesn't speak but holds you anyway. And sometimes they're in solitary moment, writing in a journal, praying honestly, or just sitting in a space where you can take your mask off and finally breathe. When you're grieving, you need room to be raw, to not filter your words, to not feel guilty for feeling lost. The truth is, most people don't know how to respond to deep pain. They offer clichés or change the subject because they're uncomfortable. But that doesn't mean your pain is too much. It just means you haven't yet found the ones who are equipped to hold it with you, and they do exist. There are people in this world, some near, some far, who have sat in the dark too, and who won't be afraid of your shadows. Who will allow you to bring your whole self to the table, not just the parts that are easy to digest. Seeking those spaces is not weakness. It's an act of courage, because it's much easier to shut down, to pretend, to stay silent. But silence often leads to deeper suffering. It can become a breeding ground for shame, convincing you that your emotions are too intense or your doubts are unacceptable. That's why safe spaces matter. They allow you to voice the things you thought you had to hide. To say, out loud, I'm angry at God, or I don't know what I believe anymore, or I miss them so much it physically hurts. In safe spaces, you don't need to explain your tears or justify your silence. You can simply exist as you are, and the act of being heard is healing in itself. You don't need someone to fix you. You need someone to sit with you, to witness your pain without trying to erase it. When someone listens without judgment, they're not just hearing your words, they're affirming your worth. They're saying, your pain matters, you matter. And when you feel seen, truly seen, something begins to shift inside you. The walls you built to survive start to lower, the tight grip on your emotions starts to loosen, you begin to feel safe enough to feel, and that's where the healing begins. Creating a safe space can also mean setting boundaries. Not everyone deserves access to your grief. There will be those who try to rush your process, dismiss your feelings, or speak in ways that hurt more than they help. You have every right to protect your healing by choosing who you allow into that sacred space. Not out of anger or bitterness, but out of love for yourself. Your grief is holy. It deserves to be treated with tenderness. If you haven't found your safe space yet, don't give up. Sometimes it takes searching. Sometimes it means reaching out when you'd rather stay hidden. It may mean trying therapy for the first time, or joining a group you were hesitant to attend, or calling that one person you've been thinking about but haven't messaged. And sometimes it means becoming your own safe space, by learning to speak to yourself with kindness, to validate your own feelings, and to give yourself the grace you've been offering everyone else. You can also create safe rituals that ground you. Light a candle and sit in silence. Write letters you'll never send. Speak out loud to the person you lost or to the faith you no longer recognize. Let your soul grieve in whatever way it needs to. Your emotions don't have to be logical. They just need to be honored. And when you allow yourself to do that in a safe environment, healing doesn't feel so impossible anymore. It becomes a quiet, steady possibility. Faith may feel far away now, but connection is still possible. Connection with others, with yourself, with life. Safe spaces nurture that connection. They're not about restoring the version of you that existed before grief. They're about giving the new, broken, beautiful version of you permission to be. To be held, to be heard, to be real. You don't need to rush to understanding. You don't need to force belief back into your life. You don't need to hide your doubts or mute your sadness. You just need to find one space, just one, where you can exhale. Where your pain isn't judged and your process is respected. Whether it's a friend, a therapist, a group, or a solitary place of reflection, that space can become your refuge. And little by little, through those honest moments of being heard and seen, something begins to change. You may not feel whole yet, but you'll start to feel human again. The numbness may not disappear overnight, but warmth will begin to return. Slowly, gently, your voice will get stronger. Your tears will begin to cleanse, not just break. And one day, you may even find that the space which held your grief also helped birth your strength. Because to be seen in your pain is one of the most powerful things in the world. It doesn't erase the loss, but it reminds you that you're still here. Still worthy, still deeply, undeniably alive. Number 3, let healing take its time. There is no deadline. Grief doesn't follow a calendar. It doesn't respect the timelines others try to set for you, and it doesn't fit into neat stages that you check off like a to-do list. It's messy, unpredictable, and deeply personal. One day you might feel like you're beginning to move forward, and the next you could find yourself right back in the depths of sorrow. That's not regression. It's the nature of healing. And the truth is, there is no clock ticking behind your pain. No invisible stopwatch counting down the moments until you're supposed to be okay again. You're not late, and you're not broken. You're grieving. And that deserves time. People around you may mean well, but their expectations can sometimes hurt more than help. They might say things like it's time to move on, or haven't you healed by now? But those words often come from discomfort, not understanding. The reality is that grief doesn't vanish just because time has passed. It's not something you get over, it's something you learn to carry, and that takes patience. More patience than most people realize. Your healing will unfold in its own way, at its own pace, and no one gets to determine that timeline but you. There may be days when you feel numb, disconnected from the world around you. Other days may be filled with tears, even when nothing specific triggered them. And then there may be moments of joy, unexpected laughter, a peaceful memory, a glimpse of beauty, and you might feel guilty for those moments, as if healing means you're forgetting. But healing doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean you've stopped caring. It means your heart is finding ways to keep living even while carrying loss. Grief doesn't ask for your permission. It shows up, stays longer than you think it should, and then circles back when you least expect it. Healing is not a finish line you cross. It's not a milestone that proves you've done it right. It's more like a long and winding path. Some days it's uphill. Some days you'll feel like you've lost your way. But you're still moving, even when it doesn't feel like it. Even when you're simply surviving. That, too, is part of healing. It's okay if you're not where you thought you'd be by now. It's okay if the sadness still sneaks up on you when you hear a certain song, visit a familiar place, or look through old photos. Those moments don't mean you're stuck. They mean you love deeply. They mean you're human. And being human means allowing yourself to feel fully, not on a schedule, but in rhythm with your heart. Comparison is one of the quiet thieves of healing. You might look at others and think they've moved on. Why can't I? But grief looks different for everyone. Just because someone seems okay on the outside doesn't mean they're not still hurting inside. And just because your healing isn't as visible doesn't mean it's not happening. You don't have to prove your pain. You don't have to measure your progress against anyone else's. Your journey is valid exactly as it is. Letting healing take its time also means giving yourself permission to rest, to not always be productive, to not always have the right words. Sometimes healing looks like staying in bed a little longer. Sometimes it looks like saying no to things that drain you. Sometimes it's as simple as breathing through the next 5 minutes. The small things matter. They're part of how you rebuild your strength, not all at once, but bit by bit. And some wounds aren't meant to be rushed. Some griefs change the fabric of who you are. They don't get better. They become a part of you. You grow around the pain, like a tree growing around a scar. You learn how to live with the absence, and in time, you begin to see that healing isn't about returning to who you were before. It's about becoming who you are now. Someone shaped by loss, yes, but also by love, by resilience, by every moment you chose to keep going. There's a quiet kind of strength in allowing yourself to take your time. It means trusting that you don't need to be fixed. You need to be nurtured. It means honoring your own needs, even when others don't understand. It means believing that you are not behind, even if the world moves on without pausing to acknowledge what you're going through. Healing also involves rediscovering yourself. After loss, your identity can feel shattered. You might not know who you are without the person you lost or the life you once had. That's normal. Grief often strips away the familiar, forcing you to reimagine your future. And that reimagining doesn't happen overnight. It's okay if it takes time to feel like yourself again, or to get to know the new version of you that's slowly emerging. Sometimes healing comes in the form of creating. Writing, painting, walking, singing. Sometimes it comes through silence, through prayer, through therapy, through conversation. There is no one way to heal. What matters is that you honor your own way without shame. Let your healing be as unique as your grief. Let it be slow. Let it be messy. Let it be real. And when people try to rush you, when the world demands that you bounce back, that you smile more, that you explain yourself, remember this: you don't owe anyone a performance. You are allowed to take your time. You are allowed to take up space in your grief. You are allowed to heal on your own terms, so be gentle with yourself. Give yourself grace on the hard days. Celebrate the smallest victories. And know that even when it feels like nothing is changing, your heart is still beating. You are still here, you are still trying, and that matters more than you know. Let healing take its time, let it unfold naturally without pressure, without shame. Because true healing, the kind that restores your soul and brings peace to your spirit, cannot be rushed. It's a quiet, gradual return to life. A slow, sacred journey back to wholeness. And you, exactly as you are worthy of every moment it takes. Number 4, be open to a new understanding of faith and life. When grief hits, it doesn't just take something from you. It changes you. It shifts the ground beneath your feet and forces you to look at life through a different lens. The beliefs you once held tightly may suddenly feel out of reach, or even unrecognizable. The answers you once trusted might now sound hollow, and the version of faith that once brought you peace may now bring you questions instead. That's not a sign of weakness or failure. It's a natural part of the human journey, especially the journey through pain. It's an invitation to grow, to expand, to discover something deeper and more personal than what you had before. In times of loss, we're often confronted with a silence that feels endless. The prayers that once felt comforting might feel like they echo into nothingness. The rituals, the scriptures, the beliefs that once made sense may now feel disconnected from the reality of your suffering. And yet, in that silence, in that void, there is a strange kind of space being made. A space where something new can emerge. A space where you begin to understand that faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about learning to live with the questions. Being open to a new understanding of faith doesn't mean abandoning what you believed before. It means allowing your understanding to evolve. It means releasing the idea that faith must look a certain way, or that life must always follow a specific pattern for it to be meaningful. Sometimes it means surrendering the belief that everything happens for a reason and instead leaning into the mystery, that some things may never make sense, and yet life still holds beauty, still holds purpose, even in the midst of brokenness. This openness often begins with surrender, not the kind of surrender that gives up, but the kind that lets go, letting go of the need to have everything figured out, letting go of the version of yourself that needed certainty to feel secure, letting go of the pressure to bounce back into a faith that no longer fits who you are now. And in that letting go, you create room for something new, something softer, something more honest. Faith, when it's real, is not fragile. It can withstand your doubt. It can hold space for your anger, your confusion, your sorrow. It doesn't demand perfection or unwavering trust. It simply asks for presence. Sometimes faith looks like whispering, "I don't know," into the dark. Sometimes it's just showing up tired, hurt, unsure, and saying, "I'm still here." That kind of faith is raw and real. It's not always bright and joyful, but it's steady in its own quiet way. It keeps breathing even when you're gasping for air. A new understanding of faith might also mean recognizing that your connection to the divine, to the universe, to life itself, is not dependent on how strong you feel. It might look different now. Maybe faith is less about attending a service and more about sitting in nature, feeling the wind on your skin, and knowing you're still part of something greater. Maybe it's no longer about memorized prayers, but about silent moments when you close your eyes and just feel. Maybe it's about trusting your inner voice, the quiet one that says, "Keep going." Life, too, begins to take on new meaning when you walk through grief. The little things become more sacred. A shared laugh, a quiet sunrise, the sound of someone's voice, you notice them more. You value them more. You begin to understand that life isn't about always being happy or always being strong. It's about being present, being real, being open to joy even after heartbreak, being open to change even when it's uncomfortable. You may start to see that what matters most isn't how much you know, but how deeply you feel. It's not about controlling your path, it's about walking it with intention, even when the road is unclear. You learn that healing doesn't mean forgetting, and moving forward doesn't mean moving on. Life will never be what it was before your loss, but it can still be meaningful. It can still hold beauty even in the aftermath of pain. And through this new understanding, you start to rebuild, Not the same house you had before, but a new one with a stronger foundation, a faith that makes room for doubt, a life that honors both joy and sorrow, a heart that beats not in spite of the pain, but because of it, because it has learned to feel more, love more, and live more fully. Being open means you allow life to surprise you again. It means you welcome wisdom from unexpected places. A song, a conversation, a moment of silence. It means you no longer cling to certainty as your anchor, but instead, you begin to find steadiness in curiosity, in wonder, in simply being. You understand that not knowing everything doesn't mean you're lost. It means you're alive. You also begin to forgive yourself for the days when you couldn't pray, for the moments when you felt numb, for the nights you stayed silent when others expected you to be strong. You realize that your humanity is not a flaw. It's your gift. And within that humanity lies the power to grow, to stretch, to rise again. Not as who you were, but as who you are becoming. Faith and life, after grief, may not look the same, and that's okay. What matters is that you keep your heart open, that you stay willing to see things differently, that you give yourself permission to change your mind, to evolve, to discover new meanings. Faith doesn't have to be loud to be real. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. So take your time, be gentle with yourself, let go of the pressure to have it all figured out, and as you walk this path, let each step be an act of trust, not in some grand destination, but in the unfolding of the journey itself. Because every step you take with honesty, with courage, with love, that is sacred, that is faith, that is life, and it is more than enough. You may not feel strong right now, but the fact that you are still standing, still breathing, still searching for meaning in the middle of your pain, that is strength, that is courage, and that is something to honor. So if your faith feels lost, don't panic, don't judge yourself, just keep walking, keep breathing, keep healing. Your faith may not look the same after grief, but maybe, just maybe, it will be more real, more grounded, and more resilient than ever before. You are not lost, you're simply becoming. God bless you.